The best way to experience something in life is for yourself, and Firestone tires were built for getting out there, for 3-day weekends, and for testing the waters. Try Firestone tires for 90 days. If you're not fully satisfied, we'll refund or replace. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
Larry Morgan is chairman of Morgan Family Ventures, spanning multiple industries. Today it includes over 47 car dealerships throughout the state of Florida. But Larry laid his roots in the tire industry, growing Tires Plus to a retail giant with over 600 locations. Welcome to Johnny G and Friends. I'm Johnny G, and on today's podcast, we're joined by my good friend, Larry Morgan. Larry, welcome to the podcast.
Johnny G, thank you.
So, Larry, I believe we met in the early 80s when I was living in Hartford, Connecticut. I was the regional manager for the Firestone brand, and Tom Mertz had just given me a new territory. I had from Maine all the way down to the Carolinas, including Washington, D.C., and you were the CEO of Merchants Tire in Manassas, Virginia. Is that right?
That's right. You bet.
So take us to where it all started. You know, the how, the when, the where did you get started in the tire business?
Well, out of college, John, I was admitted to the Firestone management training class. And believe it or not, that was in 1965. It was a great group in that class, by the way. Several of people you know, Tom Keefus was a Bridgestone-Firestone executive. Tom Reese worked for Bridgestone for a while and then went on to become CEO or president of General Tire. Paul Swensel, a very successful dealer that you did business with for years. So that was a really good start. I was real proud to be the first one in the class to be a store manager, a store supervisor, and then a district manager. And in between those jobs, I spent a stint in the Army during the Vietnam era.
Ah, very good, very good. So what store was your first in what town?
Well, I went to work for Firestone in North Kansas City, Missouri, and I've got some great memories there. The first memory is on about 10 o'clock in the morning on my first day at work, the store manager, Jay Pruka, threw me a shop towel and said, do some merchandising, which really meant dust the shelves. On Wednesday afternoon, about 6 o'clock, he says, I need to talk to you. He says, by the close of business tonight, the store was open until 9. You'll have your 40 hours in. Now, you've got a choice. You can either work with the rest of us till Saturday night at 9, or you can go home and come back Monday morning, but you get paid the same. Now, that was before wage and hour really became much of an issue. But to make a long story, I was smart enough to work with everybody else. And then on the 5th day, Friday night, this guy walks in the door, and I was about to make my first tire sale ever. I sold a 670/15 tube type to a guy in an old truck. The first tire was $15. The second one was $5. And I thought I'd really conquered the world. And then when I got finished, the store manager ripped me a you-know-what. I didn't sell up to a tubeless tire, but I'll never forget those days.
Oh, that's a great story, man. That's a great story. Yeah, that really brings back great memories for both of us. So what year then did you leave Firestone to join Merchants? And during your time as CEO there, didn't you grow Merchants by over 100 stores?
Yes, I did, John. I went there in 1972, and that was kind of a tough time for major brands because private brands had just really gotten a big toehold in the industry, and Merchants was 100% Firestone at the time. But that was my job, was to work through that. I did then what I've been doing ever since and surrounded myself with good people. And make a long story short, we also had a real big break. We were able to acquire 8 really, really nice auto centers in very attractive locations in the Washington, D.C. area for a pittance of money. And that really kind of propelled the company. And then eventually we went on to grow throughout the mid-Atlantic states. And when I left, we had 137 stores over about a 4 or 5 state area.
So then when and how did you purchase your good friend Don Olson Tire down in Clearwater, Florida? I believe at the time you had roughly 30 locations. How did that all go about?
Well, first of all, Don had sort of been my mentor. He was the number 2 guy at Firestone, and I met him when I was in the management class, and then he had to approve me for the promotions that I'd gotten each step of the way while I was at Firestone. And he and I started talking about, he was thinking about retirement. So that was kind of the key thing. And so that was in 1990. And we put the deal together then, and turned out to be the best thing ever happened to me. It was a great acquisition for me. I know what having your back up against the wall is, because Firestone helped me a little bit, but I took every single dime I had, I mean everything, and put it on the line. And unfortunately, at that time, the Gulf War was going on. The economy was bad. I'm trying to turn around a kind of a dormant business. And so there was several really tough years. Frankly, no bank would touch me because I didn't really have a track record there in that business. But, after a while, I guess when I first started, we were kind of like a non-factor in the Florida market. And I was fortunate enough that I had a great group of people that followed me to Florida that really helped me jumpstart the business. And within a few years, we had dominated Florida. And then we started to move out of Florida, and we ended up being in 27 states, from California to New Jersey to Florida to Minnesota. And we were doing $1.5 billion in business when I left. We had 8,500 employees, and a real good, successful business, frankly.
I mean, I can't even imagine in less than 10 years, you take it from 30 to 600 and some locations. I mean, you are the Michael Jordan of the tire industry, my friend. I'm telling you. I tell everybody when your name comes up, I said, that's the Michael Jordan of the tire industry. I mean, how do you do that? How do you have the vision?
Well, I have to admit, there was a time or two when I felt like I was on Apollo 13. We were coming back through the atmosphere, and the shingles were flying off. There was a few rocky roads, but the reality of life is what I've really focused on my whole life is the people side of the business. I used to have a lot of friends in the tire business get all excited when you guys would come up with a new tread design or something like that, and that wasn't really got me all excited. It was really the people side of the business that made us work. And we really did have a great group of people, and they're the ones that made it happen.
Well, that's an awesome story, my friend. So let's talk about, Lair, how you navigated this Ford-Firestone recall, if you can even remember that. But not only as a tire dealer, how did you navigate it, but also as a leader?
Well, those were really tough times. We were predominantly Firestone, very, very high in-house share was Firestone brand, mixed in with Bridgestone and Dayton. But I'll never forget it like it was yesterday. On the night before we were going to announce this big acquisition and meet with all the employees, and they had a few franchises, and that's when the announcement came down, and we had our product a lineup all laid out, and we had to stay up all night long and redo it just so that, it didn't look like that we were going to be 100% Firestone, if you will, and under the circumstances. But, I gave my leadership team a lot of credit. They pulled it off, and they were able to make our new teammates, if you will, welcome and feel like that we had a good game plan. And then for the next, John, I don't remember, it might have been 8 or 9 months, I was on the road 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And every evening at 5 o'clock, I would have a conference call with all of our store managers. And I gave myself the nickname Recall Larry. And I would do, I would tell everybody the success stories that I'd seen in our stores that day, what this store, that store was doing, how they were overcoming the objections and dealing with the consumer sentiment we call. The reality of life is none of us really believed that it was a tire problem. And that made us so much more believable, because even to this day, I don't believe it was a tire problem. I think it was other things, but, frankly, Ford out PR'd Firestone, I think, at the time. And so, Firestone took the big brunt. But anyway, we worked through that. Firestone rebounded stronger than ever, and frankly, so did we at Tires Plus.
Well, as a friend and as a fellow tire dealer, I thank you for your support during those tough times, my friend. So 2000, you decide to sell your 630 Tires Plus locations to Bridgestone. How did you know it was the right time to sell?
Well, I hadn't thought about it. Kazaki's son, who was the CEO, the head man, out of Japan, he and I were playing golf one day, and we had a limousine full of people going to the golf course. And when we left, all of a sudden, everybody disappeared but him. So I should have known something was up. But the bottom line was this: he asked me if I would ever consider selling. And it turned out to be that Bridgestone had this worldwide initiatives for, I think, like 24 or 5% market share worldwide. And my tire business would have been a big help in that endeavor. So I said, sure. I says, I'll look at it. I guess the motivating factor was that I'd basically been poor my whole life, put every dollar I ever earned back in the business. And so I thought, my family security was important and something we should consider. And then as time went on, I knew down deep inside that Firestone would do a good job. Bridgestone-Firestone were taking care of my 8,500 teammates. I knew that would be the case. So after we consummated the deal, I had an employment contract, a consulting agreement, and I stayed on and worked with the people that I've known for years at Bridgestone-Firestone. And, they really actually, when I left and went on about my way, they did a really nice job of running the business.
Well, that's so true. So then after spending 35 years in the tire industry, you invest in your first car dealership. So why new car sales? And are there similarities between owning tire stores and auto centers?
Yeah, there are. I didn't think about car business at first. I hit golf balls for 3 days and got bored, realized I needed to get back to action, and the opportunity presented myself to get into the car business. And there were similarities. On the service side, what we call fixed business in the car world, there's a lot of similarity, a little different, but a lot. And then, of course, like any business, if you've got good people, that's what's going to propel the business. And again, kind of like I did at Merchants, kind of like I did at Tires Plus, I carried that same philosophy of, surrounding myself with good people. And by doing that, our business really, really took off, and we did very well with it. The other thing about the car business is when people buy a new or used car, it makes them happy. And I used to say, a brake job and an alignment at Tires Plus didn't do much to excite people. So there was that side of the business as well. But the really big thing that really got me excited and does to this day. In fact, in the last 30 minutes, I was talking to my son, Brett, who's the CEO of our company, and he and I, we always wanted to work together, and we planned to at Tires Plus, but when that event took place, it kind of prevented that from happening. So it turned out to be great because we love working together, and there's nothing like it.
Well, that's an awesome story, and I'm so happy that you can work with Brett. And so, Larry, the Morgan Auto Group today is the largest car dealer in the state of Florida. Can you bring us up to date on your business plan?
Yeah, sure. We have 45 stores now. We've surpassed our run rate's about $4.5 billion in revenue right now, on our way to $5 billion. This year, we'll sell 150,000 vehicles. and work on about 1.5 million cars in service.
Wow.
We've got practically we have 27 brands. We've got luxury brands, exotic brands. We've got Asian imports, a lot of domestics. So we've got a good cross section of brands throughout Florida. And we love Florida. It's a growing state. It's a business friendly state. Franchise laws are good. So we're going to stay in Florida. That's where our roots are, and that's where we want to continue to grow our business. We do rank in the top 15 of dealership groups in the United States. That includes 6 public companies. So, we've grown very well. I don't know, I guess I didn't mention to you that our first store was a Toyota store. And frankly, they're the hardest to get. And without having really a lot of hands-on experience, that was quite a feat for us to get that store. And we were very proud. And that's kind of what propelled our future, if you will. Like all the other businesses I've been, I'm currently all over the people side of the business. That's what makes us tick. It's why our business is successful.
Awesome. Are you putting up a new BMW dealership?
We are. It's coming out of the ground, and when it's all said and done, it's terrifying. But I'm going to have $50 million invested there between the blue sky and the real estate and the building. It's going to be a mammoth facility in the hottest growing part of Tampa.
Wow, that is awesome. Congratulations on that. So, Lair, we've enjoyed a long friendship. We've got some really good memories along the way, and we played in golf tournaments. We've attended many sporting events. Do you have any kind of memories you'd like to share?
Well, I don't have to tell you. You've always been kind of flamboyant, and I think there's two things I really remember. First of all was when my family and I came to Chicago, and Brett and I went to a Florida State Notre Dame game, came back, and you'd invited us to go to a Bulls game. And if you recall the story, Mr. Johnny G, Mr. Chicago, I know how to do this. So we go down to the stadium. You're out there negotiating with the scalpers. And I see you pulling money out of your socks and everywhere else. And so you get the tickets, and we get to the gate, and we have our kids, your kids, my kids, everybody's there. And you had the tickets to the ticket guy, and they were legitimate tickets. The problem was they were for a game about 3 days before.
Oh, I remember that like it was yesterday.
So we had to go back to the hotel and order pizza in and watch the game on TV. But that was that was a good time. And then, you mentioned the golf tournaments. We won the Pro-Am there at Firestone one time, and then the senior Pro-Am down in Nashville. That was a lot of fun. And I mean, I never got so nervous over spending a lot of money as I did a 2-foot putt in those days. So, but we had a lot of fun doing that, and 500s and stuff like that too. John, I see you have Walter Payton's jersey there behind you, and triggers a couple of great memories. As you know, he was on retainer for you at Bridgestone-Firestone, and on 2 occasions. The first one I recall, he came for my annual meeting at Tires Plus down in Tampa, and I'll never forget that while he was making the keynote speech and we were having dinner and all that, he got one of the waiters, an African-American young man, and he says, "I would like for you to get all of your colleagues, all the other young men that work here at the hotel, and meet me out at this particular place at 10 o'clock tonight." And he didn't say anything more. So my curiosity was, had gotten me. So I go out and I'm standing nearby, and Walter's there, and all these young men that are working in various jobs and stuff there in the hotel circle around Walter, and he proceeds to tell them things that they needed to do in their youth and as they grow up to become better people, more responsible people, how to be good students, be good to their families. I mean, it was the most unbelievable, I don't want to call it a lecture, but they all looked up to him, of course. And you talk about leadership and giving young people guidance. It was the doggonest thing I've ever seen in my life.
To talk about character, Lair, here's a guy that could have used his influence to get ahead on the liver transplant list, okay? And he would have probably survived and still be talking today. When I asked him that question, Walter, have you thought about that? He called me Gam. He said, Gam, no. He said, because if I do, I'm going to go ahead of Johnny G, Larry Morgan, or somebody else. And I'm not any better than them. It's God's will, and whatever God wants, that's what's going to happen.
And one other thing, John, I'll never forget is that you kind of gave, I guess, what you call the keynote speech or whatever it was when I got inducted in the Tire Industry Hall of Fame, and I'll never forget that and appreciate it, pal.
Oh, thank you. Well, on a personal note, Lara, I'd like to tell everybody what happened in my life in 1988 and how you impacted tremendously. So we were having dinner at a restaurant in Virginia, and I shared with you that I had a health concern, that I discovered a lump on my body. You immediately made a few phone calls and put a game plan into place. I then flew back to Ohio the next day, and I saw 3 urologists, and I was diagnosed with testicular cancer at the age of 36 years old. My whole life, Lair, was flashing in front of my face, and all of a sudden I'm hearing cancer. I'm hearing 30 days of radiation. I've heard no travel. You got to go to the hospital every day. And all this was coming at me so fast. And I was getting operated on that Friday. I didn't know at the time, Larry, that you dropped everything at Merchants Tire. You flew to Akron, Ohio, because you knew I had a wife with 2 very young children to take me to the hospital. And you not only took me to the hospital, Larry, but you stayed with me for the next 4 or 5 days until I get released. Larry Morgan, I will never forget what you did for me, my friend.
Well, we were friends before that, but I think that certainly melted a bond that has been there forever and ever and ever. And I remember those days just like it was yesterday. And I knew you were in world of hurt, and I thought that's the best I could do to help support you and your family. Your mom and dad were there. I remember the whole situation, and I'm very thankful that I had the presence of mind to do it.
Well, God bless you, my friend. So as a business owner today, how do you balance family life and friendships with work?
Well, it's not easy, work, especially when you're growing a company. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of pressure and things of that nature. But I remember one time in my office where you brought your entourage down to Clearwater, and I had my folks there in our conference room. And I don't even remember what the issues were today, but I know we got into it. And I guess you wanted to show your people that you were in charge, and I wanted to do the same thing. And all of a sudden, I don't remember which one of us realized it was getting out of hand, but one of us said to the other, hey, let's go outside and talk a minute. We went outside the room, and I don't think it was 2 minutes. We resolved the issue, went back in, picked up where we were, and everything worked out. But by the way, I know it was your fault.
I do know we scared the bejesus out of everybody in that room because it did get intense that day. But,
yeah.
That then shows, the business side and the friendship side. And, we were both very competitive. And you were fighting for Morgan Tire, and I was fighting for Bridgestone-Firestone. But those are great memories. Well, as I said earlier in the podcast, you, my friend, are the Michael Jordan of the tire industry, and doesn't matter whether it's in the tires, it's in the cars, or it's in charitable giving. You've made it all happen, and guys like you makes the world a much better place. And talking about that, hopefully, when all this pandemic stuff gets over with, you, Ernie, Kim, and myself can all enjoy a nice dinner together, whether it's in Clearwater, Scottsdale, Nashville, wherever. I miss you, my friend, and thanks for being part of Johnny G and Friends.
Well, I've enjoyed the conversation, John, and look forward to talking to you and seeing you again soon. And I agree with all the things you said. It's been enjoyable. Thank you.
All right. Stay safe, my friend. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
The best way to experience something in life is for yourself, and Firestone tires were built for getting out there. Try them yourself for 90 days. If you're not fully satisfied, we'll refund or replace. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.